New message. Welcome to chat. Remember to guard your privacy or something. Anyway, hello, everybody. Good old YouTube sending me a notice right at the beginning of a live stream. How are you all? I'll take the hat off. Not too sunny today. I'm just going to wait. Michelle's gone to get a charger because her charger's running a little low. Her laptop's running a bit low. Got my coffee. I'm going to sit here. I want to get and see everybody today and just have a little chat about what we're up to. Good morning. I need to get comfortable. Should have thought of that before I hit the live button. Will you believe it this morning, Michelle? As soon as I hit go live, because YouTube have updated something, got a big written thing come up on the screen saying, in future when you're doing this, set your privacy button. And I thought, the last thing you want to read as you hit the live button. Yes. Good morning, everyone. We've got a video to go up today, but I decided to hold it just to have a live chat because welcome to the chat room. Guard your privacy. Good morning, Jan. Michelle's just getting her laptop. Hi, Derwin. Good morning. I was going to put my hat on, but when I sit forward, it looks like I've got just the rim. I just wanted to... This is not very well thought out, Stephen, because I've sat forward. You're on the phone. So I've sat forward, got everything set up, and then I realized I don't want to be sat forward the whole time. So now I've got to readjust everything. The trials and tribulations of live streaming. Hi, Xing. Michelle's going to be on the ball at the moment, checking any comments, so she'll read them out to me if they come through. A few people have asked, actually, I think Petri asked the other day about how we plan for our trips. And I'm going to do a much more in-depth video about how we travel and what we take with us. Some of you will know from the Facebook posts and various other things that we're about to set off on a very exciting trip. Seeing things are very good this morning, a little bit sleepy. I've got the anxiety. I always get this sort of anxiety before a big trip, and I shouldn't do really. I think it's I don't know, it's a sort of a releasing of adrenaline maybe that you get, or maybe a bottling up of adrenaline you get before a very big trip. And this is a huge trip we're about to go on. We're on a perpetual trip, as you know, but this next trip, for those of you that are interested, we are doing, should we say, sort of like a trip from Australia all the way to Europe, but we're doing it across land. We might take the odd flight. There's no rules. We're not going to actually sort of beat ourselves up if we've got to take a flight. Jan, it's still warm here.
It's a little cooler today.
It's hey, Raggy. G'day, mate. Do you think this yellow suits me? I'm not sure. This is my new bright yellow top. So we've got this really amazing trip planned. You're going to love it. And we're going to do loads and loads and loads of videos and show you some of the places Michelle and I have wanted to go to for a long time. And some of the places yet we haven't even planned to go. So what we're hoping to do over the next 12 months is travel from Australia and eventually end somewhere in Europe. And it'll be with the help of you viewers. Sort of, you might suggest something and we might think it's interesting and head off there. Good morning, Sam. Hi, John. So it's I've alluded to on the channel that we are going to why am I having to roll down every single comment, Michelle? You're going to have to keep an eye on them because look, even the
Caroline says
next one.
hello.
Good morning, Caroline.
John is.
John, we are going to the Philippines. I don't know when, but it's high on my list of places to go. So this side of the world, we definitely are going to Japan, and we definitely are going to Korea, um, which is going to be super. We've actually got a little bit of a secret trip that we're doing next week, and it's not secret. I'm going to share it with you, but I want to film the start of the trip and um, the arriving, and sort of so you see it as it's happening. I mean, it might be a day or so behind. One of the things we're going to be doing this time is trying to keep everything up to date. I found in the past a lot of vloggers, when they're traveling, you'll see that they're in, say, the Philippines, for example, John, and you'll say, oh, how's the Philippines? And actually they're not in the Philippines, they're in sort of back in Australia or something. And so what we're going to try and do, if we can, is keep the video vlogs quite up to date, at least maybe within a week or so, so that when you're commenting with us, it's very relevant to what we're doing. And if somebody says to us, oh, you should go and see this amazing place, we can actually do it. Because a lot of times you'll see travel vloggers, and that you'll say, oh, go and see this great temple, and they say, well, we can't go and see that temple because we left there 3 months ago. So we're not going to get ourselves in that situation. We're going to have to work really hard to get the vlogs filmed and edited up quick enough. And bear with us. I really want you, if you can, to share those vlogs with people. That I know that Steve's Kitchen has changed its format a lot over the last years, and we're becoming much more about travel and food and less about the cooking. So some people are not happy with that, but look, you're just going to have to bear with us. The channel itself is just going to have to evolve around Michelle and I. So we will be listening to you, and we'll be posting these, but I do need your support. We've got to try and get the views back up again. It doesn't bother me too much, because actually the niche group of you that watch our videos now are probably all our best viewers, you know, all the viewers that have been with us a long time, the ones that interact with us the most. But we want to build that back up, so we start getting multiple thousands of views. It would be nice, but we're not going to beat ourselves up about it. We're just going to produce videos and try and entertain you and keep you involved. So next week we are off somewhere really exciting. You can guess all you like. I'm not going to tell you, because I'm actually going to put a video up of us setting off. We're going to show the getting the bags. By the way, and we are traveling for probably at least a year, and we think we've managed to get ourselves down to one bag each. Do you reckon, Michelle?
Yeah.
Do you want to come and say good morning to everyone? Hi, Ahmed.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, we've got down to one bag, one backpack. Is it a 50 litre, 55 litre backpack each?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So that's quite an achievement, because in the past, when we've travelled, we've always had sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I'll simplify it, Stephen. Extra bags, extra stuff, and we've been practicing over the last few years, sort of trying to condense our travel gear down and down. We've had a few camera changes whilst we've been here in Australia, so we're condensing everything down much smaller, and we'll talk to you about that. I want to get to our first sort of exotic destination, and I'm going to share with you a little bit more about what we're carrying with us and how we've managed to sort of downsize our world, so that we're literally traveling with the very bare minimum. So questions, ask some questions. Apart from where we're going next, I'll answer anything.
John says, bring your own Vegemite.
No, we won't be, John, because we're traveling so light. It's wash and wear, wash and wear.
I have to discover the food that's where we're going to.
Exactly, and we'll take you along with us. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. This next, I think we're not going to beat ourselves up about getting content done. So, but I think because of that, I'm just trying to turn the computer. It's only a phone. Because of that, wow, that's tight. Coffee, Eric. Good morning. Cappuccino of sorts. It's a little bit cool because by the time I made it, and then I started setting this up so I could chat with you guys, and setting it up and working out where I'm going to set. So now it's cold.
Discover local coffees.
So we're not even going to take our little coffee. Our stovetop coffee machine isn't coming with us. We're going to just be now in some parts of the world, as we've traveled in the past, we find the coffee isn't so good. But if you hunt around, you always find an interesting variation of coffee or whatever you like drinking. So we're just gonna have to, no home comforts, no Vegemite, no special Steve's Kitchen coffee making machine. We're gonna have local stuff, and it's gonna be fun. It's going to be fun, and what's going to be even more fun is having all the regular viewers with us, you know, seeing where we're going, getting involved. We get a lot of questions about how we afford to do this, and we're not particularly those of us that know us very well know that we travel on a shoestring. We're not sort of multi-millionaires traveling or anything. We're doing this out of passion, and I'll try to maybe explain a little bit more as we go along how we managed to do this.
Zing said, just love to have coffee with both of you. That would be great.
It would be lovely, and I really want to meet as many of you as we can as we travel. I've met a few YouTube buddies as I've traveled around the world, but I'd love to meet actually viewers. I've already, I can't say where we're going, but I've already reached out to a few people where we're going, and it looks like we'll be meeting up with some people pretty early on. If anyone out there is in Japan or Korea, wants to say hello when we get there in March, we'd love to meet people. Any suggestions of places to go? We've got a new vlogging camera. It's very compact, and I'll be reviewing and talking with you about it. So I'm hoping the vlogs are going to be, you'll see. But anyway, next week I'm going to film when we leave Australia. I'm going to actually film the thing and share it with you, and we're going to get onto the plane, and then I'm going to end that film, and I want you to try and guess where we're going, and then I'm going to start a new vlog. This is the idea anyway, when we arrive at the airport on the other side, so you with us will discover and see exactly where we've sort of turned up.
So John says, pass by us and show my wife how to make a good cheesecake she fails every time.
Is John in the Philippines?
So yes.
John, we want to come to the Philippines. Whereabouts in the Philippines, mate?
Eric says, I always add some coffee to my milk and sugar.
You like it sweet. See, Eric, some parts of Southeast Asia where we go, they love their sweet coffee. And if you ever try to find a coffee that isn't sweet, it's generally sweetened. So you sort of say, no sugar, because I don't have sugar in my coffee. And you say, no, I don't want sugar. So they say, okay. And then they hand it to you with no sugar in. And it's as sweet can be because they put honey in it or saccharin or something. Because a lot of parts of Southeast Asia, they just the concept of unsweetened coffee doesn't make sense to them.
Zing says, been to Laos? Question mark.
Oh, this is interesting. Lao, no, we haven't. But Sam, I'm interested in what you've just said there, because these Share the Love T-shirts, I've not had any feedback. We haven't been selling them really, and I haven't had any feedback. So it's not available for the payment method. That is really interesting, Sam. Can you keep in touch with me about that? I kind of want to see if it works, because where we are, we don't have, also in Australia, I can't buy them. I have to order them specially from the T-shirt company, and it costs a fortune for me to buy them and have them sent over to Australia because they don't do a shipping service over here, or at least it seems too expensive to me to warrant it. So until I get to somewhere like um, Asia, US, Europe, I can't see how you guys are able to, and whether they're too expensive or whether it's okay. So keep me in the loop. You're saying they can't ship them, or they...
There's no available payment methods for the UK.
Okay, we'll have to look into it because I you can order them from my steveskitchen.com. So steves-kitchen.com/shop. And that's a different payment gateway. That might work better. But I, I'm not good at it, Sam. I'm not really good at... Now, Petri, I was just thinking about you. We were just talking. You know, you mentioned about planning a trip. Michelle said to me, we must do a video on how we travel and how we plan and find our hotels and accommodations. Because to me, it's kind of, it's just part of our life. You know, it's what we do. But I realize actually that it's quite an art form and we do it very well. So I think we will actually do, when I get to somewhere nice, and I won't even say, I'm not going to, but when I get to somewhere nice shortly, I'm going to do a video on how we pack, how we travel. So I'll give you some tips because I know you said it was Petri, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Excuse me, but you know, I'll give you some tips. I'll share with you some ideas of how we get things done as cheaply as we do, because we really do manage to live on the road and have managed to live on the road for a great deal less than what we used to pay living not on the road. So we actually spend a fraction of what we used to pay when we didn't used to travel. So I need to share some of those tips with you, and I will do. Um, I tend to, sometimes it's a bit like being here in Australia and trying to film your own backyard, making it sound exciting because you kind of, it's just your backyard and it feels less dynamic. And it's the same with sort of travel trips, tips and trips and how we pack stuff and the likes.
Like you said, thanks. And it was me. I'm wanting to go to Spain to visit a friend.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, maybe we'll see you in Spain.
Harold Van Arkel said, in case you end up in the Netherlands, you have to come and eat with us. My sons will do the cooking.
Oh, we will be in the Netherlands. I'd love to come to Holland. We actually have a neighbour here, a friend from Holland, and we were talking about it not long ago. And I want to come and do a bit of time in Europe. Holland will be high on the list of countries that we want to visit. I was quite fondly remember Enschede in Holland. We used to go to Enschede as kids, and we went with our family to Riest, was it? I forget the name of the town, but it's just good memories.
Eric says, are you renting out your house while you travel?
No, Eric, we're not. We haven't got the house anymore. We're actually technically homeless. So I should do explain that a little bit more as we travel. A lot of people think we're kind of exceptionally wealthy. We're not particularly. So maybe it might inspire people if they want to do what we do to do it and realize that it isn't as expensive as you might at first seem.
John says he's 30 minutes from Manila, a place called Laguna.
Laguna, that sounds familiar.
He says everything here is too sweet or too salty.
Yeah.
Try Baloo, that will put hair on your chest.
Yeah. We'll be over there. We'll be over there. I was talking to somebody the other day. I don't know whether we'll end up going to Manila or Cebu, or it's definitely on the cards. I want to experience some of that great Filipino cooking and learn a bit more about the gumbos and the different Filipino foods. So as a viewer, if this interests you, and I know most of you are interested in food, we'll be looking at each country we go to. We'll be trying to look at the foods. You know, I've got a sweet tooth, so we'll be looking at the desserts that they produce. and I'll try to share back with you as much as I can about the cooking process, but we're not going to be beating ourselves up to try and find kitchens. The last
You want to meet locals who cook food, don't
Yeah, I want to see local cooking. I want to share with you real sort of mum and pop style cooking, not particularly fine dining or anything like that, but just how people eat as families and things. That's what we want to do. So if we can wangle our way into some invitations, that's already we're starting to get some invites already, so it's good. And take you guys along, and then maybe we can learn together and polish our skills on Japanese cuisine, Filipino cuisine, Korean cuisine. We'll probably not be going to some of the countries, although we may. We've been a lot to Thailand and Malaysia and Vietnam, and we we may not be able to do those again this time, but I'm not writing them off.
Eric says, will you and Michelle go on a cruise?
Probably not, Eric, because cruises are expensive. You see, when people go away on holidays, when people generally go away for a 2-week or 10-day holiday, they budget quite a few $1,000s. I was reading recently that when people go away, they can spend. I'm just going by Australian rates here. $5,000 or $6,000 to go away for a fortnight cruise or a 10 days in the Caribbean or something like that. Can you imagine if every sort of fortnight Michelle and I had to spend for $7,000, we would be completely bankrupt. It's just not sustainable. So we don't tend to do those holiday things, but we can still give tips to people who are traveling, whether you're going short term or long term, how you can do it on a budget, if that's what you want to do. I mean, if you save up all year and you're working a 9 to 5 and you want to go, on that big holiday once a year, putting the money away, then that's good. But some people like to travel like us, unplanned, pretty much free to do what you want. And that sort of holiday, it means that even some of you that maybe don't have a lot of money and want to do trips, really exciting, interesting trips, you'd be surprised how little you can do it. You might even look and say, okay, it's costing me, $500 a week to live where I am now. Actually, I could go to here, super exciting, and do it for $400 a week. The only thing is you've got to get there. That's where you've got to be a bit careful. We'll share some tips. Good evening, Kelly. I saw Kelly jump in there.
So the Ask Mama channel says, hello Steve, where is your sweet puppy girl? That one of the little doggies?
I think it's you.
Oh, it's me. Okay, I'm here.
Michelle's with me. Or
One of the doggies.
one of the pups.
I don't know. I can't remember which one we have.
You'll have to clarify that.
Harold says, my son Casper works in a 1-star restaurant and my son Yoris works in a 2-star restaurant. Both are learning.
Good. And good for them. I mean, who said that?
Harold, who invited us to the Netherlands.
Good. Well, I hope they'll invite me to their restaurants, 1-star or 2-star, whichever. I hope we can get in there and try. I miss the beautiful breads from Holland. Even here we have, sometimes if I can, I get the stroop waffles. We were just saying, because my neighbour comes round sometimes, not my neighbour, I'm staying at my parents' house at the moment, but we're just visiting. When I'm here and you see these flowers behind, this is when I'm back home with family. But the neighbour is Dutch, so we get, what are the cookies called, Michelle? I forget now. God, I've had them for years. What are those little spiced cookies? Little spiced cookies. Not stroopwafel. They're a different type of cookie. Lovely, great with coffee.
Howard said Dutch cuisine does not exist. Yoris can make stroopwafels, which are very Dutch though and very sweet.
Do you know what I'd like to get is
Just say goodbye to John. It's 8 a.m. dog walk time.
Take care, John. Harold, what I'd love to get is one of those stroopwafel presses, one of the old stroopwafel presses. I keep collecting stuff, and then I never get anywhere where I can use it.
Sam said he was ordering. So that's where I was ordering it from. So from my website.
Okay, Sam.
So we'll have to look into that.
We'll look into it, Sam. Look, I'm sorry if you can't get the t-shirts. I will try and work on it slowly over as we get. Maybe I should get one of my boys to look at the site, and they're better with the websites than I am now. I used to be pretty good with that stuff, but I've kind of got out of touch with it.
John did say, I don't know if he's still there, he says adobo is a Filipino speciality, and halo halo, which is mix as a dessert.
Yeah, yeah. The adobos are one of the things. If any of you haven't been to the Philippines before, I think it's sort of rich in the sort of Spanish and Portuguese cultures and the flavors and things they have. But I know a lot of families make their own style of adobo, so I'd love to learn a little bit like we did in Mexico. And Mexico is another place I'd like to go back to, actually, because I think we can share a lot more. Now, we've changed our mindset about how we travel. When I set off with Steve's Kitchen 4 years ago, touring, we were still trying to do the cooking shows as we went around. And I'll be honest with you, it spoiled a lot of places that we went to because we were so entrenched in trying to produce cooking videos that we lost the ability to look around some of the places we've been. And I think one of my biggest disappointments was the amount of time that we lost when we were in Mexico editing stuff that we'd filmed in Southeast Asia. And I'd been looking so forward to going to Mexico. And by the way, we had a fantastic time there. But I never really got the opportunity to film much there because we were so busy with all the massive. If you haven't done YouTube before, and if you have done it before, maybe is more to the point, you'll know you soon get bogged down with video editing and data, and just it can become overwhelming. So
say good night to Sam.
Good night, Sam.
In the morning. It's late here in the UK. Have a great day, everyone.
No worries. Good night, Sam. We're, by the way, Sam, just if you haven't gone yet, we're going to be doing, I think we're going to try and do a video every other day from now on. Now, forgive me if I don't. We're not going to kill it again. We're not going to beat ourselves up, but we are trying to keep things up to date and at least a video every other day so that you guys, now that will mean, we thought about this before, that kind of means that it won't always be on a Sunday or a Friday because there are only 7 days in the week. So it's sort of, but it doesn't matter. As long as you guys are getting regular updates from us, I hope you'll enjoy them.
Tree says, I like how relaxed your travel videos are. So whatever you do, I'm for it.
Thanks, mate.
Harold helped us out,
Speculoos. The different names, Speculas, Speculoos. I think in Holland, Speculas. In France, where we used to live, Speculoos. Love those spice cookies. Eric was saying travel, Steve and Michelle.
Says, how about Steve's travel or Steve and Michelle see the world? And John says the travelling chef. I think they're helping out with things for your t-shirts.
You know, what, for the channel name or something awesome, perhaps. We're probably not going to change the channel name because we've talked about this. I don't know what you guys think. It's been Steve's Kitchen for a number of years now. And yes, sure, when we started the channel, it might have been better to have, now with hindsight, have called it, you know, the Traveling Frog or something crazy, you know. But it's not really about the name so much as what we do. So it might be sound a little bit odd, but occasionally we will be in the kitchen, and we're just going to leave it as it is for now, unless there's an overwhelming need to change it. We thought about it, and for the moment it's Steve's Kitchen, though Michelle will be in it a lot, and travel will be in it a lot.
So, Kelly's saying hi. Hi, Kelly, to me. I'm good. And then Petri said, when you travel, do you like to do touristy stuff too when you travel?
Petri, we're not. No, I'd say the very short answer to that is no. We like to do stuff that tourists. We like to discover our own touristy stuff. I really find it hard when I turn up to a place which is in the tourist guidebooks and you arrive there and there's just loads and loads of tourists there, and there's little, if any, authenticity left in the culture. For example, When you go to some places in Italy, when we were there last, there are some places that are super, super popular on the guidebook tours, and you get there and you see what is basically 1,000 tourists in one area taking photographs of the same thing. And then you'll go to another little town, can't remember the name. There was a little town we found in Italy, which was up at the top of a mountain, and there was a chocolate festival on there. I think I put a video up about it. It was a chocolate festival, but it was a local chocolate festival, and it was the most amazing day. We really we felt the vibes of the community.
It was busy, but busy with
Busy, but it was all locals. There wasn't any tourists there. Nobody spoke English, which is fine. We have no problem with foreign languages. Nobody spoke English, and it was as good as any sort of touristic event that you might went to, but it was much more authentic. The Italians were embracing their own creativity. The town was embracing its own celebration of chocolate. They were carving chocolate in the streets. There were great big statues of chocolate men and chocolate boys and girls, chocolate cats and dogs. Well, that sounds like a Lowry song. And it wasn't on the tourist thing, so we look for those sort of things. And so I don't really, I'd rather go and see a Mayan temple than I would go and see the pyramids in Egypt, for example. I'd rather go and see, we drove all the way in the US to see the Hoover Dam, which is a great tourist attraction. Everybody goes there. It was immensely disappointing for us. You couldn't find a place to park in the many car parks that were there. It was costing a fortune to park. We got parked up, took our photographs of the Hoover Dam. It's nice, but I always remember thinking with Michelle that we'd actually stopped in the mountains in Spain, driving from Spain into from France into Spain. We were in the Pyrenees, not the Pyramid. It was another set of mountains, but we came across the most beautiful dam, and it was bigger than the Hoover Dam by quite some size, and it was just gorgeous. And it was set between this huge, great big green valley, and we stood there and we photographed it. This is before the YouTube, by the way. We photographed it, and we just marveled in the creation of this wonderful dam. There was no one there. There was no tourists there. So that stuff to me is just a lot more remarkable. And so we will occasionally, if you go to India, you probably want to see the Taj Mahal, but I think we'll also be looking for the Taj that you never ever have seen, and that gives us a lot more joy.
We found that in Chiang Mai, in the temples there. We found the old temple behind the new temple.
Yeah.
Nobody was at the old one, were they?
Yeah, we found there was a temple in Chiang Mai. I think it was called Wat Chedi Prai or something. I can't remember. Wat Chedi Prai. And at the time there was a temple, a little small white, beautiful. I mean, it was immaculate, gorgeous temple, and the tuk-tuks pulled up in front of the temple. Everybody got out, thousands of tourists. They all got out and they photographed this temple, and you couldn't barely move for people. And they'd go inside, take their shoes off respectfully, go inside, photograph the temple. Then they'd walk out in their tour groups, get back in their buses or tuk-tuks, and off they go to the hotel. Just behind this temple, about another 500 meters or so maybe behind the temple, was this beautiful old temple that was just amazing. Wat Chedi Prai, I think it was called. I'm guessing, it's a long time ago. And nobody was there. There was me and maybe two other people looking at this place. It had huge, great big sleeping Buddhas carved in gold. It had, and just because it wasn't on the tourist track, it wasn't in the book.
Petri said that's understandable. Another Canadian couple I follow, based in Japan, on YouTube, basically say the same as you.
Good.
Howard says we have the modern electric stroop waffle press, also an old one somewhere, but the old one is tricky to work.
I bet. I reckon that probably I really like the modern stroop waffle press. If it's nice and easy, you just make the batter mix up and pop it in, and bang, you've got your stroop waffles. But I love those old those old die cast ones that you used to be able to get. That would be really nice just to have them as part of our collection. Eventually, when we get stopped and we find our new home or our new kitchen, we will put all these things on display or use them, no doubt.
You can read the last comment from Al, because he says, you invited to a home restaurant, the Laughing Wild Boar, but you can say what it is in Dutch, where our sons cook once every 2 weeks. You see it? I could attempt it, but it would be completely wrong.
Well, it would be with the Dutch accent, but het legend ever swinge. Svidne. It might be Svidne. I'm not sure. Cause don't you try and test us there, Harold. When I get there, you can tell me. But the laughing het legende. Got to get my sounds going.
Kelly's asking, have you been inside the Statue of Liberty, Stephen?
No, and that's probably one of those places I wouldn't go, Kelly, because I have heard so many bad reports of the queuing. You know, people say it's a little bit like the no, I won't go and compare others, but apparently the queues are horrendous, and I'll find something like that for you, Kelly. I'll find something like it where you can wander in there and you'll just say it'll be a massive statue, something just as beautiful, just as historic, and you'll be able to pop over there and go there for a fraction of the price and discover these places. So, you know, keep them peeled.
Oren G says cheers from Texas.
Who said that?
Oren, O-R-R-E-N-G.
Oren. Cheers, me dear. Texas. We've been to Texas. Love Texas. And we will go back. We went all the way down to El Paso at the borderline of border, and we never crossed over into Mexico from El Paso. But it was, you could see, we've been into Mexico subsequently, but I like Texas a lot. It's some great cities. Yeah, we found a pistachio farm there. I always remember we were driving along, we saw like a pistachio farmer, and we had our kids with us at the time, and we went into this place, and it was just probably the first time I'd ever been to a pistachio farm, and it was like, wow, this is really cool. They had chocolate coated pistachios, they made pistachio paste, ice cream, yeah, the ice cream with pistachios. So yeah, they're good times, happy times in the US.
Oren says the statue is pretty from afar.
I think that's a sort of like a, yes, it's nice to see it from afar, because a lot of things that are very, very popular are, I was talking to a lady recently. She spent her whole life wishing that she could go and have a meal on the top of the Eiffel Tower, and they went there and spent a fortune. I think they spent, you know, several thousand Australian dollars, you know, going and spending time, you know, in expensive hotels just so they could go and have this sort of dream. She'd set this dream in her mind that she needed to have a meal in the top of the Eiffel Tower, and she took her kids with her. The kids were still at the age where they could go. Anyway, I to cut a long story short, it was the most, I think it was the most disappointing thing she'd done, and they wasted so much money. The kids were unhappy. The meal was, you know, so. Everybody, and so sometimes if you set your expectations really high on a place, like I really want to go and see the pyramids, and when you get there, I've got a friend, by the way, at the moment in Egypt at the pyramids, and he's a traveler like ourselves, and he's not enjoying it as much as he thought he would have done. On his profile, he may say, with us you'll always get it true. That's why sometimes when I get to places I don't actually film and share, because I don't want to be saying this is really nice and it isn't. So
this time we're going to film and share, and you might hear us say,
you might hear us say we got to the pyramids, and I'll tell you what happened. Okay, what happened, and this might distress a few of you. My good friend Christo, who's a really talented street performer. I'm not going to link his stuff, although I might put it later in the description below. He's currently in Egypt, and he'd witnessed some guy beating a horse with a stick, and he, being a true Aussie, he gave him a bit of a sort of a shouting at, and the guy just stopped beating the horse. But he also noticed a lot of these horses that tourists were going riding in the sands with, or riding around getting their photograph in front of the pyramids, had a lot of welts and whip marks all over their bodies. And it's distressing for you if you're a traveler and you love animals, sometimes to get to those places and see such cruelty. And I can tell you now, it only seems to happen, and that's not going to happen at the Statue of Liberty, but these outrageous things tend to only happen in places that are overly populated by tourists. There's something goes out of the sometimes I remember we were driving once. We'd spent some time in Portugal. In the most beautiful, Portugal is just one of the most beautiful countries in Europe. There are a lot of beautiful countries in Europe, from the north to the south, but Portugal's beautiful. And we were up in Coimbra, which is sort of, I think, above Porto. And we were loving the Portuguese people, the Portuguese food, the scenery. And then we drove down. It was out of season. We thought we'd go down to the Algarve just to see, because the Algarve, for those of you that don't know, is like a really super popular tourist area in Portugal. And it was out of season, so that we thought it won't be so busy. And we got down to the Algarve, and it was just remarkable how jaded the Portuguese people were with tourists. There was no pleasure to meet you. There was no. It was like, oh, another tourist. They were hard to explain, but the genuine sort of love that we have for people when we meet them had kind of died in that area. Probably because it's had decades of drunken louts going to that region, behaving dreadfully. So what happens is the locals, the good locals, either move out, and migrant workers move in, or people get very disheartened. And so you see that a lot when you get to really heavily touristed areas. Does that make sense?
Petri says, I've been to the pyramids. It wasn't like it was on TV, but I thought it was nice for what it was. But it's not like a litter box.
That's what my friend was saying, Petri.
Didn't see any abuse of animals.
No, and that's something that I know my friend Christo would be very susceptible, because he's very much a gentle soul, so he would be quite troubled by that, as you would, I'm sure, as all of us would be.
Owens says, Texans love Aussies and the Aussie spirit.
Yeah, good-o. Well, we will come there. We will come to Texas. We're going to spend, not this year, because there's so much planned. For those of you that have just joined me, the next trip that we're doing is, and we'll get into it in a bit more detail, we're trying to travel from Australia to Europe, and maybe onwards from there, by as much by land as we can over the longest period possible. It might take us over a year to do this. We might even end up being back home in Australia during the trip, but I want to show you how I want to take you some places that excite me, and probably a lot of them you will have heard of, and some of them you won't have heard of, and it's going to be fun and complicated. And I'll explain to you as we go along how we do it, how we manage to get by and do it. And it might inspire you to try at least maybe to do some of these places. Oops, I've gone out of focus.
So Petri said that was the only touristy thing I did. I had a friend show me around.
And that's what we're often lucky to meet people on the journeys that we go on. We're often lucky to meet people who will share with us their country, and we get to see another side of it. But Petri, this time we're going to overburden ourselves with trying to do things that are too popular, and not overburden ourselves with filming in locations that have been hard to film with. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, really, but we've had a great 4 years of traveling so far, and it actually has been 4 years. It's remarkable to think that when the original Steve's Kitchen was filmed here in Australia, in Melbourne, that is 4 years ago when we started doing that, and yet we've been producing cooking videos all this time, and it's been really hard to do that on the road. And as I said to you earlier, some places we've been to, we haven't been able to share with you because of the demands we put on ourselves to produce stuff. So we're going to be changing that.
Oren says, love your perspective during your travels. Your next trip will be epic. Thanks for sharing your journey.
It will be epic. There's some amazing places. No, not even one, dozens of places that are so high on my list of things to do that you should be thinking of doing yourself. And even if you just take one of these places and do it, you won't regret it.
Many, if not most of the places are places we've never been to.
Pretty a lot. Some of the places we will have been to, but for instance, Japan, never been to before. Korea, never been to before. And then loads more places that we've never been to before, or we've been to very briefly and not really had the full.
Well, the Philippines are long.
We're definitely going to the Philippines, John. I don't know, John was in earlier. We're definitely going to the Philippines, and we'll definitely be. But I've been to the Philippines a couple of times, and I've always loved it. But this is way before YouTube, and we never spent enough time there. These were those short holidays, which I was talking to you about before, which cost a lot of money, and were 2 weeks in a special resort somewhere. This time we're not doing that.
Petri says, I feel whatever you guys have fun and enjoy, we'll enjoy as well. I'm looking forward to your travel adventures. Cool.
Yeah. Petri, this time next week, Michelle and I don't even know where we'll be.
No.
That's how unplanned we are. Well, we know which country we'll be in. We haven't booked anywhere to stay. We're kind of rolling the dice a little bit, and it does work. Trust me, this isn't something that we do that costs a lot of money either. This is something we do on a budget. It will be. Was that a hello from Launceston? Did I say?
No, hello from Liechtenstein.
Oh, Liechtenstein. Sorry, being in Australia, I just saw that come up, and I thought it was Launceston.
Yes, Stephen Harrison.
Hey, Stephen. Liechtenstein. Pardon me, I haven't got my glasses on there, Stephen, so I read that as Launceston, which is in Tasmania, by the way, just down from us over here. And we've been to Liechtenstein before. That's a very pretty little country. Liechtenstein is often referred to as the smallest country in Europe, I think, isn't it? Or principality, but I think Andorra is smaller.
Visiting his aunt.
Okay.
Isn't Stephen normally in Scotland? Is that Stephen from Scotland?
Is that Stephen from Scotland? Michelle's asking Stephen.
Am I getting confused?
So, I think I titled this video "Ask Away," so you can.
Smallest country is Vatican.
I don't. That's not a country, Stephen. Vatican. Is Andorra smaller than Vatican City? You might Google that for me, because we've been to Andorra, which is a country very few people know about, which is up in the mountains between France and Spain, and it's a proper country with its own, not just a tax dodging haven.
Stephen's saying yes, it is. I think that's an answer to yes, it's him from Scotland.
Oh, right. Okay.
Vatican is
Vatican's not a country. It's just
Taking
a
time off uni,
it's just
that's right.
it's just a tax dodge. It's just a tax dodge. You know, it's probably more like Monaco. It's just a place for people to keep a lot of money without paying any tax. Pardon me. Hope I don't upset anybody with that comment. But I will say things sometimes.
So Audio Cancer says Monaco or San Marino? Question mark. That's the smallest country.
You see, I think Monaco, San Marino are principalities, and I'm not sure if that classifies them as because they're often regions within a country that are quite they're like the Vatican City, although they have Latin as an official language. I think they still speak Italian. Whereas Andorra is an independent nation in so much it has its own language and a lot of really, it's a lot of you may not know, but if you drive up from Perpignan in France and you go up into the mountains heading towards Spain, you just keep going up. You eventually come to a little town, I think, called Bourg Madame, which is pretty. It's such a beautiful town. There's a plateau of land, and then there's another mountain that goes up, quite very windy, and on the top of this mountain there's a country called Andorra. And back in the day, it was the most enchanting little country, almost like something you'd remember from who's the little girl, Heidi, something like Heidi. It isn't now, by the way. If you go there now, it's just a place to buy cigarettes. And
Audio Cancer says Andorra is 3 times larger than Liechtenstein, so Liechtenstein is the winner in that case. And Stephen says Andorra is the 6th smallest country in Europe.
There you go.
Got that wrong. And Petri says, well, the Vatican does have its own currency, lol.
Yeah, I bet it does. I bet it has its own currency. Gold bullion, I think, is its own currency.
Becky Johnson says Nico is worth seeing in Japan. It's amazing how far you can go on the train and buses in Japan.
Yes, keep those tips coming. Michelle will make a note of that. Nico in Japan. I want to get the trains around Japan. We'll test the buses. Japan's going to be exciting, right? Well, you're looking forward to Japan. It's going to be cherry blossom time in March. So all those beautiful cherry blossoms. We're not taking our big camera with us, our big DSLR. We've downgraded everything, but we'll still be capturing some really nice. I hope we're going to get some really nice B-roll.
Oren says, have you ever tried any food that you wouldn't eat again?
The Andorrans speak Catalan. Do they? I'm not sure if there's a different patois in Andorra, Harold. But that whole region is part of the Catalonian region. So you have, Catalonia is. You're very right. If you drive down through Bourg Madame, it's definitely a Catalan. Good morning. It's a long time since I've been to Andorra, and I will go back there, so we'll double check. But I have heard from many of people that Andorra's just turned into a real sort of tax dodging country. But back in the old days when I first went there, and it wasn't really yet, there wasn't all that sort of like greed and money going on. It was still a little bit of a tax dodge, but it was very pretty.
So you didn't answer Oren's question. Have you tried any food that you wouldn't eat again? No, I don't think so. Oh, the sausages in France.
Oh, and I would eat it again, though. Yes. You see, that's the problem. There's to my French buddies, of which there are many. If ever and to my non-French friends who might go to France or will go to France, there's a sausage, a very unusual, acquired taste, should we say, called andouette or andouillette. It's sort of got, I forget the spelling of it, but somebody out, one of you could Google it and pop it in there. But andouillette is a sausage that's made from intestines and sort of, it actually smells a little bit like a latrine and tastes just a little bit like a latrine. So, but the French love it. And I would eat it again because I need to be reminded whether or not I like it or not. I certainly didn't like it the first 2 or 3 times. And so I've had it at least 2 or 3 times. So yes, I do tend to go back and I'm stupid enough to put my hand in the door jamb and close the door twice in a row. And I'll do it again. So no, realistically, there's nothing I've eaten, even things that I don't like, that I wouldn't eat again to see whether or not my taste buds have matured.
So Harold says Andorra speaks Catalan, so not quite its own language. And Stephen said it's
Yeah,
the
we've
only
addressed
country
that.
which official language is Catalan.
Is it the official language of Andorra? I thought, you see, because there are parts of Europe. If you go to, for example, if you go to Venice in Italy, the region around Venice, above Venice towards Udine, it's called Friulano. Friulano. Harold might know because it's not far from him. Now, the official language there is Italian, but actually the actual language a lot of the locals speak is Friulanish or Friulano, Friulanish. So it's a very distinct patois for that region. You have to remember, barely 100 years ago, Europe was divided up into many, many different regional dialects. And I thought there was another actual patois in that most of the older Andorrans spoke beyond Catalonian, but I could be wrong.
Howard says, we are in Eindhoven, a big, boring industrial city, home of Philips. So many things were invented here, like the audio cassette and MP3. Also, the painter Van Gogh used to live around the corner.
Okay. Eindhoven. Nice.
And Stephen is just saying, according to Wikipedia, the official language is Catalan.
We don't trust Wikipedia, Stephen.
And Howard says, Andouette's made from all sorts of organs.
It is made from all sorts of organs, but mostly we.
In our experience.
If you I always remember being served andouette the first time, and somebody said to me, "Oh, it's an acquired taste," and I sort of smelt it, and it smelt like, I don't know if you gents would probably only know this, so this is, sorry, a little bit unpleasant, but a very unclean public latrine, public toilet. Very much a sort of uric acid sort of smell, very, very unpleasant. And I thought, oh, you know, because a lot of things smell really bad, but when you go to taste them, they quite often, if you block your nose, they don't taste as bad. So I thought, oh, well, I'll give this a try. It tasted just like it smelled. It was disgusting, in my opinion, and Michelle's. So it's a bit like if you're doing kidneys. Quite often they'll boil kidneys in milk to remove some of that uric acid out of there, some of those smells that you get. You quite often find some offal is cooked in milk to clarify it. Well, they don't do that with andouette. It actually has that smell.
So you got over the smell for durian and taste of durian, and you're not.
Yeah, I can eat anything. Smells don't put me off. It is made of all sorts of organs, and I think that there are regional variations of things. So, by the way, we are getting prepared. We are very close. We've got ourselves down to one bag each for this next year's traveling, just one backpack. And it's much smaller than the bags that we used to take. So I'm pretty proud of that. And we are setting off in the next 4 or 5 days. We'll be actually heading off, and we'll be somewhere quite exciting. So you're going to be seeing video of that very shortly, and I think you're going to enjoy it as much as we are. And if we come through your place, if we come somewhere where you are, you've got to reach out and say hello, and you've got to invite me around for dinner, or get me your grandmother to show me how she cooks something delicious.
And me.
No, Michelle's not coming. Oh, God. All right, then invite Michelle as well. So prepare 2 places, but be prepared. We will be filming. Not everything, but you all want to see, right? Everybody wants to see. It's one of the only prerequisites of meeting us.
So Oren says, my family is Cajun, and Joel's sausage is served. Is that the same? Possibly.
And you'll have to Google it. Kelly, I have got a video if you want to check it out on me trying durian fruit. Not for the first time, but I've got a video on durian fruit, and I quite like durian. Um, Many years ago, many years ago, when I was in my 20s, um, I lived in Asia, and they used to have a lot of durian around, and durian basically was banned. You couldn't take it into buildings, you couldn't take it on public transport because the smell is so intense. It's almost like rotten meat. You know, it has a very bad smell. So um, it was banned, and I think the first time I ever had durian was probably way back in my 20s, and I didn't like it. I must admit I didn't like it at all. But I can give you some tips. Watch the video on Steve's Kitchen durian, where I go to the
Oren says, I've never heard of durian until I saw your video.
yeah, I go to see this durian farmer, and he's so passionate about his fruit. We call it a fruit for want of another word. It's not really a fruit. It is a fruit technically, I think, but don't think of it as a fruit. Think of it more as a sort of like a rich, smelly camembert. So he was so passionate about his fruit and explaining to me how it grew, and he was telling me about the rambutan trees and why they put rambutan trees into the into the grounds, and how his father had, you know, beat him with a stick if he didn't do things rightly, you know, right. And now how when his son, so now his father would beat him with a stick if he didn't do things right, but then if his son, this is the farmer I'm talking to now, did things right, he bought him an iPhone. It's like how the times have changed, you know. So and I think the stick produced better results, maybe. Not that I'm encouraging people, you know, he didn't literally hit him with a stick, but you know, he would get into trouble for not, he wasn't rewarded. Whereas now he if his son wanted, you know, did something well, he would buy him an iPhone 10X or something like that. The spoiled generations.
So Audio Cancer says, have you tried surströmming? Surströmming, which I've looked up, is a lightly salted fermented Baltic Sea herring.
Oh yes, yes I have, years and years and years ago. It's the rotten sort of fish, the rotten herring. The is it the one that's fermented over time in just room temperature? Got a feeling. Years ago, I have had it, and I liked it actually. Very delicious.
It says, during the production of surströmming, just enough salt is used to prevent the raw herring from rotting. A fermenting process of at least 6 months gives the fish.
Yes, it's fermented in it. It's fermented in the sort of what the French would call the cave, sort of like in your shed, basically, with a very small amount of preserving salts in there, and it bubbles and basically becomes very rich, and it's in a very acquired taste. But I had it, if it's served right, you know, not you're not just eating great big slabs of it, but if it's served right, it's really quite delicious, if I remember. But I haven't had it, gosh, I haven't had it in 20 years, so I reckon I'd still like it. Yeah, a lot of things you've got to not let the smell scare you. You know, if you think about, if you like cheeses, and I do, if you actually smell a really ripe camembert that's got all those sort of ammonic acids coming off, and the smell of sort of ripe cabbage and things, it's a pretty disgusting smell. I mean, we do have to trust our noses with food, by the way. I mean, that is one of the things I always think. If you smell something, it smells bad, the receptors in our brain is there to sort of say, whoop, don't eat this. But some things like durian, although they're actually some of the smell technically puts a lot of us off, it's because it's very close to some of the smells of things that we would not normally eat. But in countries where those fruits are common, obviously they've adapted their their brains to know that durian smells good. And most Asian friends of mine that eat durian, and it is really a Southeast Asian stroke Chinese fruit, they love the smell. So ask away. If there's any more questions, we are going to run this as long as we have to.
Aaron says, Cajuns eat anything land, air, and sea.
So take a big scoop of mud, add some seawater to it, and whisk it up into air. That would be interesting,
And Howard
if not a
said,
bit muddy.
some cheeses have to sit and ventilate before you eat them.
Yes, we say I say breathe, let it breathe. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the cheeses now we have here in the supermarkets in Australia, I'm going to have to be honest, are pretty, not disgusting. It's just such poor quality that they have no flavour, and they can quite often cost us as much as for $10 for a cheese, you know, for a camembert. But they've got no natural living organisms in them. They've been so irradiated that they have no flavour, so they don't tend to mature. But a good cheese, even now, I would say a good cheese needs to mature. But let me tell you a little story about cheeses. Just 1 minute. I like a good, rich, tasty cheddar, a nice, strong camembert or brie, Clumiere. There's so many cheeses I like that are really that mature. But when we were in Udine in Friuli in Italy, so we're up near Venice, frequently the people in that region and all over Italy and France, they'll eat very young cheeses. So like a cheese that's just been made. It's just like a fresh, young cheese. And we went up into the mountains near the Alps, just the pre-Alps, I think they call it, the literal translation is. And we went to a little village where a guy was making cheese. I wish I could have filmed it and shared it with you. We will do next time we see this sort of thing. But this was way before the YouTube, and probably didn't even really have a camera at the time. So we went up and we're watching this cheese maker, and he's got his hand in, he's cutting the curds, and he's making these, he's got the cows are up in the hills just behind him, and he's making these fresh cheeses. And he in his little cave, he had these great big, and if I can show the size, they were sort of like rounds of cheeses, about maybe a foot and a half, maybe 30 to 40 centimeters in diameter. Well, they weren't covered in wax, were they?
No.
They weren't covered in wax. They developed a sort of like a skin, but a thick skin. And he would make these cheeses, and you could buy them from him. They weren't expensive. They were expensive because they were a big cheese, but they weren't expensive. If you like today, if you go and buy cheddar in Australia, you might pay $15 a kilo. I guess these cheeses were like about 80 cents a kilo, but they were big, so they might have cost you 30 euros. There weren't euros around in the day. Sorry, back in the time, this would have been lira. So they were so when you had, I'd been staying with a friend, and every morning they would have this cheese with their breakfast, and it was so delicious. I mean, it was so delicious. It was the equivalent of a mild cheddar, like a young cheddar. And actually it was a young cheddar if you want to have a literal translation of it. And really nice, wasn't it, Michelle? So nice. So when we went up into the mountains and we saw where they were making this, I bought a great big round of cheese, like a huge, bought 1.5, great, like a wagon wheel of cheese. And we took it with us from Italy to our home in France. We were living in France at the time. And this cheese lasted a long time, but as a family, we were eating this cheese, a very young cheese, so delicious. And the bigger cheese matured and got older and older with time, because you can't eat a cheese that big in a fortnight. So it actually became like almost a Comté or a cheddar, you know, like a strong cheddar. So I do like young cheeses. There's a lot to be said for a really nice young cheese also.
Howard says a good cheese should be alive.
Yeah, it has to have live culture in it. It can't be. I can't understand how our supermarkets here in Australia can produce a brie or a camembert that you could leave out on the side for a week and take a bite out of it. It has no flavor whatsoever. It's like eating rubber bands, and they're quite often like they'll say on the packet, Tasmanian, and forgive me because Tasmania makes some of our best cheeses, but they say Tasmanian cheese or Tasmanian beautiful cheese. No flavor. I don't know how they've managed to kill any of the flavor in these things, but I think it's so they have long shelf lives. They can put them into the supermarket and they can be there sort of 9 months and never mature or change, and they're so stable. So yeah, a cheese has to be. Unfortunately, our supermarkets are wrecking the cheese industry here in Australia.
Owen says, anxious to try your pavlova recipe.
Oh, you've got to have a pavlovas are so easy to make and yet so delicious, and you can have a huge great big slice because technically it's all air, or maybe you could just have a big slice because you like it.
Stephen Harrison says, what do you think of haggis?
Haven't had haggis for a long time, Stephen. The last time I had it was probably Hogmanay, some sort of maybe a Burns night some time. I like it. I mean, nothing wrong with haggis. It just, I mean, it was crumbly. It was spicy. It had all the right spices. And nothing wrong with haggis at all. It's got nothing really offensive in a haggis at all. It's not like candid. Very easy to eat, and in the right settings, a good Burns night dinner or something like that, where they sort of toast the haggis, and you know all the poems come out. The you know, so is it the saluting of the haggis? Yeah, no, I like it.
Audio Cancer says, is there anything that you'd like to try you haven't tried yet?
Yes, so much. I want to have kimchi in Korea. I want to try all the different kimchis. There's just too much. I mean, even today, some of the things that people have mentioned. I would like to have haggis, for instance, in Scotland. I'd like to have a haggis produced by maybe a small local producer, rather than the haggis that I've had at the moment, which are often for export. So they're kind of, I don't know if they're really good haggis. I'd love to go to somewhere in the Hebrides or somewhere outside of the big cities in Scotland and have somebody making a haggis. There's lots I'd like to try. Food is our passion, really. I mean, it's kind of like there are only a handful of things you have to do to live, right? There's eating, the opposite of eating, breathing, and these are the things that are important. Getting up in the morning, starting the car, driving to work, getting into an office, typing some stuff. These don't sustain us. They're not now. Our ancestors never did them. Our great ancestors didn't have to do them. So they're not things that actually sustain our bodies. But eating, sleeping, and having families and just living, these are the things we need. That nobody cannot. So they're the things that should be passionate, but there's something that we all have to do. I mean, nobody can not eat. Nobody cannot breathe. So they might as well be things, if you're going to do them, they might as well be things that bring you joy and happiness and bring you together as a family or bring you together as friends.
Byron says, hi Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Hey Byron.
Oren says, have you all
always good to see you, Byron.
Sorry, interrupting you there.
Sorry, what was that?
Oren says, have you all had Kopi Luwak coffee?
Kopi, is that Kopi Luwak? That's Malaysian, I think. Kopi, is it Kopi?
Kopi is, yeah, and Luwak.
Kopi Luwak, yes. Yes, I have. Kopi Luwak is that from Malacca?
Oh, yeah.
I think it is.
She says, I love kimchi.
Very sweet.
Homemade
Oren,
kimchi
very
and not
sweet.
brand name store-bought.
Yes, I love. I've had kimchi, pretty mediocre kimchi, to be honest, when I've been overseas.
It's having food that's from source, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good one.
So it would be nice to learn how to make kimchi a little bit better, maybe get some tips on how, if I wanted to, because I like to make sauerkraut at home and I love sauerkraut. And to be honest, if you buy sauerkraut or chukrut, if you buy sauerkraut in the supermarkets and you get it home, it's quite often a little disappointing. I hate banging on the supermarkets and things, but they are there purely to make money. They have no other function. They really don't care about you or I or the quality of our lives. They might go out there and say, save a little bit more freshness, blah blah. They don't care. They just make money. So as a rule, we should have no allegiance to any supermarkets and that. But if you can learn how to make things like sauerkraut or kimchi from somebody who has done it traditionally, you can quite often, for a tiny fraction of the cost. I mean, that big sauerkraut I made when we were traveling around Australia cost me, I mean, it was a huge, great big jar of sauerkraut. It was delicious. Sauerkraut's so easy to make. It was delicious compared to the sauerkraut you can buy in our supermarkets here. It was crisp, it was fresh, it was aromatic. It lasted all the drive through Australia. So we drove all the way around Australia. We met a couple up in the northern territories, and we shared sauerkraut with them out in the bush. It was so delicious. You can make it with your eyes shut. It's so easy to make. So you just got to, we want to learn how to make kimchi from somebody who is as good at making kimchi as I am at making sauerkraut, because I grew up around sauerkraut, so I know how to make it. I don't have any problems making really good sauerkraut, nor should you if you watch the video. You can do it with your eyes shut. And kimchi, I believe, also, it's one of those things that the average family, mum gets and makes the kimchi, puts it on to ferment. But what we buy in the supermarkets is often very bland, made for long shelf life, and kimchi has a long shelf life anyway, but a long stable shelf life. So that somehow they've managed to make it so it doesn't mature, because maturation means it's technically going to go off eventually.
Stephen Harrison says, when I was 8, I was in Australia with my parents and my dad ate crocodile and I think he liked it. Have you ever tried crocodile?
Yes, croc's quite nice. He probably would have liked it. I mean, there are different ways to have crocodile. You can have it just as a steak cooked on a barbie or cooked over a campfire. You can have it a little bit like a smoked salmon, where they actually preserve the crocodile and slice it. It's very nice. It's not the best meat in the world, to be honest, but it's good.
Howard says, some years ago, my son Yaris took his strip waffle things to France, where we have a house, and we worked a food market there. He had some of the dough left over that sat in the car, and we forgot it. We also had Roquefort cheese in the car. The cheese organisms invaded the dough, and it turned into a Roquefort dough. We dare not eat it, but in hindsight, I am intrigued if it would make interesting savoury waffles.
Yeah, I would have probably eaten it. I would have probably cooked it up. And
They probably would have.
yeah, I would have done. I know I would. I'd
You
have
can
tried it.
usually see
It
it.
might have been disgusting. See, we do that. Occasionally we do have things and we think, oh, that might be nice. And you make it and it's like, that doesn't really work, because, maybe the flavours are just wrong. It'd be like, I don't know, fennel seed custard or something like that. Might not work. Might work, by the way. Copyright Steve's Kitchen. You can fennel seed custard. But you can...
You can generally see if something's not good enough to eat.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right.
Trust, as Obi-Wan Kenobi said, trust the nose. Follow the nose. Whatever.
What he said.
Yeah, you got to trust your inner senses a lot of the time. In the old days, and when I say the old days, I don't mean sort of like the 1950s or something like that. I mean, historically, people would try a little tiny bit. They'd sort of micro-try small bits, and if it made them feel a little bit sick, they would say, right, that berry, you can't have that berry, it gives you sort of diarrhea or something like that. But they wouldn't go and find a berry in the woods and start sort of like stuffing it into their mouth and find themselves stone dead in the morning. Mind, they wouldn't find themselves stone dead in the morning, of course, because somebody else would. But it's a little bit like foods. I mean, many a time we used to do a lot of meat curing. So sometimes I would cure a piece of pork and the molds would start to grow where we weren't expecting them. And you can kind of tell from smell and taste whether or not that's still going to be a usable product. So I'd have cooked it, given it a try. I suspect it might not have been that pleasant.
And Petri says, I'd love to find a good falafel recipe. I always get disappointed when I taste one and it's not the same as when I first had it.
See, Petri, when I did my falafel recipe on Steve's Kitchen, I kind of I can't say it's the best falafel because I haven't I've had good falafel and I know what I like. But to me, I did a lot of research and we tested and tested and tested the falafel. For me, falafel is all about getting the herbs and spices into your falafel. So you'll see on my video, I was using huge, great big bunches of parsley and coriander, fresh cilantro leaves for the Americans, coriander, parsley, huge bunches. I mean, not little sprigs, not little bits of dried, chopping it up, getting those flavors in there. Now, when you make it, I know from speaking to people that make falafel at a very high level that it is all about getting good quality herbs and spices into your falafel. So you might find, if you have a little look at my video on how to make falafel, there's some people, I get comments, it's a very contentious area when you start talking about anything that comes from that region, whether it's sort of Greek, Turkish, Lebanese. There's a lot of arguments that go on below the comments where it comes from. So you can experiment. Some people will tell me, oh, it's got to have this herb in it or that herb in, and I respect that for sure. If you feel that it needs this herb, then you should try it, but it doesn't mean it needs that herb. It doesn't actually mean that there's a law somewhere that says if you don't put coriander into your falafel, it's wrong, but you should experiment with it. But I do think the most important thing with falafel is lots and lots and lots of green, lush, fresh herbs and fresh spices. Don't let your spices get too old. If it needs cumin seeds in there, then toast fresh cumin seeds and ground them. You will have a falafel to die for sure.
So Audio Cancer says, brief us about the feral camels of Australia. Why are they there? What do you Australians do about it? Do you hunt them and how do they impact the ecosystem?
That's a big subject for me to cover in one go. I mean, the camels were brought to Australia for, you can probably Google the story. I'm not 100% sure. I'll get Michelle to quickly look on the wiki for it. But the camels were not indigenous to Australia. They were brought here for sport or for racing. I got a feeling it was racing. And as often is the case, they escape. People let them off into the wild. And it's the perfect country for camels. So we actually have the largest, I think in Australia, we have the largest wild camel herds in the world. I mean, though they're not indigenous to Australia, we have some of the largest. And oh, Michelle's got her hand up. She's going to say something.
It says they were imported into Australia from British India and Afghanistan during the 19th century for transport and construction during the colonisation of the central and western parts of Australia.
Yes, and that's why, you know, the Ghan Railway, which runs through the centre of Australia, it comes from sort of the Afghani, I think, workers or labourers, but they brought camels into the country. They eventually got loose in the wild, and now we have huge herds of these camels. They have impacted. I'm not sure of the actual. A lot of animals that were brought unnaturally into Australia have hard hooves, and the hard hooves of those animals will often break up the very most of our animals. Kangaroos, think about it, kangaroos, possums, they're all sort of soft padded paws, right? So they go across the ground and they don't damage a lot of the very shallow rooted plants that grow throughout Australia. So they are, when we brought in things like horses and cattle and cows and sheep, these are hard hoofed, and they had a devastating effect on the flora of the country, you know, because they broke up a lot of surface soils that weren't, that the roos never broke up, and the indigenous animals didn't. Now, I got a feeling camels have a lot less of an impact, and I'm probably wrong, because I think camels have fairly soft You know, they're sand animals, so I think they have very wide, soft, gentle feet that actually don't break up. So I'm not sure. You'd have to look at it up. I'm not a scientist, but I don't think the camels do a massive amount of damage, and they are farmed. We've seen places where they keep camels in fairly large numbers for camel rides and trekking.
Australia has the largest population of feral camels. The number of feral cows were estimated to be more than 1 million. That was in 2008, with the capability of doubling in number every 8 to 10 years.
Okay, so over 1 million wild camels, feral camels in 2008, and with the, not necessarily 2 million, because it said with the capability of doubling over 8 years, but maybe things have been put in place to keep the camel numbers down. Having said that, we drove the entire circumference of Australia right down through the middle, and I never saw wild camels. I saw tracks of wild camels. We camped once or twice out in the bush, and I saw camel footprints, camel trails. Would you grab my water, Michelle? And we also saw camel spores on very close to where we were camping all night. There were camel spores and camel feet, but I never saw the wild camels coming through. So a bit disappointing actually, because yeah, I really wanted to see that sort of like Lawrence of Arabia herd of camels going across the Australian outback, and what a great film that would have made for us. You know, great opportunity to film it, but we didn't. So I'm just going to grab some water, guys and girls. Thank you, Michelle. God, that clashes. Excuse me. Any questions? Let me just get my voice back. I've been talking for an hour.
So Cynthia Roble says, hugs and kisses from Mexico. You are an adorable man.
Oh, thank you, Cynthia. You make me blush.
So Cheryl says hi from Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson.
Tucson.
Tucson, Arizona. Tucson, Arizona.
Stephen Harrison says, have a wonderful rest of the day. Hopefully I'm able to find time to join the next live stream.
Oh, thank you.
And Petra said, didn't even know you had a recipe for falafel. I'll check it out. My first falafel was in Egypt, but I'll still check out your videos and tips.
You're welcome. Have an experiment. Go with fresh herbs. My falafel I made, I thought was delicious, but my spices were, my herbs and spices were really fresh. And I've been told subsequently I should have put different things in or taken certain things out. And I experiment with now.
Well, Petra's saying, question about the falafel, do the types of beans matter, or is it like you're saying it's more about preference? And Audio Cancer says, aren't chickpeas sort of mandatory for falafel?
I would have said they were mandatory falafel, but some people I think in the comments have told me, and I haven't had a chance to try it, that certain fava beans or certain different types of,
Petra says, I've seen fava beans.
yeah, and some people have told me they get a much better falafel with fava beans, and there are other beans, by the way. There are other varieties of beans that you can try from different regions. Now, in my experience, the beans don't taste massively different, and the flavors you're adding into the falafel are really strong. I won't go and list them off because I'll get them all wrong, but they can over. The taste of a fava bean or a chickpea is going to be greatly enhanced, much more enhanced by the flavors of the spices and herbs you put in, but it might affect the texture. So have an experiment. There isn't a right way to make a falafel. Now, there are people that come on to the comments of that video and tell me this is how you have to do it, and I always say thank you, for the comment. This is not necessarily how you have to do it, though. It's just the way you do it. And if I did it your way, I'd still get someone else come onto the video and tell me this is how you have to do it. So there is no right way. It's just your way. But fresh is best.
So Laurie Lumac says, hello from Saskatchewan, Canada. It's -27 here. Nice to see green behind you.
Saskatchewan. See, Michelle's getting good. She went from Tucson, Arizona, Tucson, Arizona to Saskatchewan. I can say Saskatchewan without starting to stutter.
RNG said, just saw an ad for a basil variety that had leaves the size of lettuce. Wonder if it's bitter. That would be cool.
Yeah, there's very many different varieties of basil. I've got a basil plant behind me here that's a pretty little sort of natural basil, but you get the Thai basil, which is a sort of purpley kind of leaves. Um, there's also, by the way, for those of you that are interested, if you're in Texas and places like that, or Tucson, Arizona, which I think is a higher altitude, we have, if you have cilantro, um, we call it um, coriander. My gosh, I don't even remember what we call it anymore. Coriander, the plant, or cilantro, as the Americans call it, which is actually the Spanish word for coriander. Um, it's a very hard plant to grow in a lot of parts of the world. Here in Melbourne, and we really struggle to grow coriander or cilantro. A lot of people say to me, "Oh, I have no trouble growing it," but it bolts very easily because of the hot weather. It bolts ever so easily. But there is actually a Thai version of cilantro which is looks nothing like coriander at all. God, I'm jumping between the two words. The coriander leaves, they're very gentle, almost like parsley. Very, very soft leaves, very tender. They bolt very easily and they're hard to grow. But there's a Thai version of coriander which is almost like a thistle. They're spiky, you know, the leaves are actually almost like holly leaves. And it's if you bite into these leaves, it'll actually prick your tongue. But if you cut it up, the smell of coriander or cilantro that's coming off them is identical, like a really rich flavor. Now the beauty, why I'm telling you about this plant is, I don't really know why I'm telling you about it. I can't remember why I started telling you about it. But the beauty of this plant, it grows anywhere. It's really robust. So if you like that flavor of coriander or cilantro, the fresh leaves, not the herb, not the little dried seeds, look for the thorny, the spiky version of it. I think it's called Thai coriander. And if you've struggled to grow it in the past, you'll grow this one. If you can find the seeds, you'll grow this one. It'll grow like a great big bird. You'll be careful, you have to wear gloves to cut it. Yeah. But once you've tenderized the leaves, it's delicious. You can use it just like you could fresh cilantro.
Audio council saying it's past 2 a.m. over here. I'm throwing in the towel. Good night from Sweden.
Good night. I know it's late in Europe. You
Okay.
Europeans get to bed.
Laurie Lumac says it grows like a weed here. And Oren says
Where?
that was in they were from one of the ones I said, Saskatchewan.
Okay, beautiful.
In Canada. And Oren G said cilantro can be finicky here too. We'll look for the Thai variety. Might do well here in the Gulf, on the Gulf Coast.
Yes, anywhere where we get the warmer weather, it's harder, and I don't mean they're not so humid. It's harder to grow it. Generally, it does tend to bolt to seed very quickly, unless you can get it really established in a big bed of the stuff, not growing in pots, but growing in the ground. Then you can sort of, because if you're cooking with that stuff, you know, cilantro, coriander, I'm saying that stuff anymore because I'm tired of jumping between cilantro and coriander. I call it coriander, by the way, which is the correct name for it. Cilantro is the Spanish name for it.
Cheryl says
Hang on.
Sorry.
If you've got it in big bunches, you really do need lots of it to put into your dish. You know, if you're making a curry or if you're making a salad, you can just hack it off, take big handfuls and drop it in, crush it up, break it into your dish. You can't do that with the Thai one. It'll spike your hands and hurt. Go on.
You were talking about Tucson, Arizona. Was it high? She said we're at 2,500 feet.
Yeah, I think if I remember, it's altitude.
So Cheryl also said, I made your golden syrup. It's amazing. Have you ever made empanadas?
Yes. No.
Well, we've made them, but not for the channel.
Yeah, not on the channel. There's a lot of South American Mexican foods that we've got to learn more about. I don't make great empanadas, so I've still got a little bit to learn on that.
Going back to falafels, Howard said the beans depend on the region, but there's something going on with Jewish people tending to be allergic to the fava beans, I think, hence their preference for chickpeas.
Allergic? I think that might be.
I think it just depends what beans people
Yeah.
like, doesn't it?
I mean, that kind of tars a whole group of people with an allergy problem, and you know, Judaism is not specific to any one group of people. So you know, you have the Ashkenazi and the Jewish people come from two very distinct regions of the world. So I can't imagine they're all allergic, but tradition has it. It's a little bit, you know, some countries that are very strong in eating certain things find it hard to digest other things. So I can see that. Experiment.
Going back to coriander, Laurie says, I grew it from a store-bought pickling spice and let it go to seed. Potato beetles don't like it.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
Some, but I do. Potato beetles. Well, if you've got potato beetles, that's a bit of a pain. I don't think we have those in Melbourne. Not that I'm aware of. So, quick run through the questions, Michelle.
Michelle says, I sure wish I lived next door because when I found your channel, I've been cooking like crazy. Today just made candied citrus peel. I'd love to meet you someday.
Well, love to meet you too. And we are traveling. This whole video was about today to say to you all that we are actually about to set off in the next 7 days. We are heading off to somewhere really fascinating. We're going to take you along. We're going to film. We're going to be sharing lots and lots of adventures with you. I hope you'll enjoy them. I hope the numbers will try. Everybody who subscribed to the channel probably subscribe for the food. I'm going to have to ask you to keep following us on this journey. And I know the viewing numbers have dropped down immensely, which doesn't bother us. Well, I'd love to have much more views, but you know what the channel started as a cooking channel has changed greatly. So the core of you that watch us at the moment are the best of the Steve's Kitchen viewers, and that's good enough for us, and we'll build on that. And so be looking out for. We're packing at the moment. We're testing our weights and getting our luggage down to the smallest possible denominator. And I'm going to be filming some really exciting stuff over the next 12 months, including a little snippet here for any of you that are interested. Some phenomenal train journeys. If it comes off, nothing's planned. Some phenomenal train journeys. But don't hold me to that. And just some beautiful places. So look out for that next week, probably towards the end of next week. And we'll try to keep everything super up to date. I think I'm going to get off. And
if you just want to share our videos, that would help us.
Yeah, if you can share our videos with your friends, talk, you know, if you can chat with people anywhere on social media, say, oh, you know, look at Steve's channel. He used to have all this cooking stuff, which is still there, by the way, several hundred different recipes. If you want to go through the back catalogue of stuff, knock your socks off. We will be doing the odd cooking video in the future, but it'll just be when it suits us. We're not going to try and beat ourselves up and miss the opportunity of sharing with you some of the beautiful places that we're visiting in the world, which happened last time. I'm not going to let it happen again. This is all about sharing with as much ease as we can some of the most beautiful cultures, people of around the world. And
like Laurie says, I like to watch cooking from all over the world and always like armchair adventures.
yeah, so you're going to see some really amazing stuff, and we listen to you. We would love it if you could try and help us build the channel back up, so all those people that have watched us in the past for cooking start to enjoy our travel videos as well. I'm not going to start a new channel. We've tried that before. We're just going to stick at it here on Steve's Kitchen. Who knows? One day I might settle down again and start doing just cooking. I can't see that happening because Michelle and I love traveling so much. But there's going to be a lot of food featured, and we're going to have a great time. Be good. Love to you all. Share the love. And Sam will check out the t-shirts. I don't know. We haven't had any sales on the t-shirts yet. So if it is tricky, or if anyone comes up with any new designs, if you want to shoot us across some designs, maybe we can have some other t-shirts. I don't know how hard it is to order it might be tricky. Maybe it's too expensive. Let us know. I'm happy, to get feedback. We're not about selling produce or stuff. It's there for fun. I wanted the t-shirts because I think it looks kind of cool for me if I'm wearing them. Michelle's got them as well. I've got a nice hoodie as well, by the way. That's kind of coming on the journey for us. So when we get to some colder places, which hopefully won't be too often, yeah, let us know. If you go online and you try and order a t-shirt and you say, oh, it's too expensive, or it's not working, or as Sam said before, won't let us buy in this country, let us know, because otherwise we don't know. When I order them, I have to do it. I have to do it a different way. I have to order it from the suppliers, and they'll only send out. They don't post to Australia generally, so that's a pain at the moment. So we have to pay quite a lot for the postage.
Mona's just come in. She says, "Hey, cuties, love you both. Sorry I missed this. You can go back and watch it because we're just ending."
But you have missed it, Mona. I'm very sorry. We are gonna head off. Watch it through, Mona. There's lots of stuff, good stuff. Got the creases on this t-shirt. This t-shirt has just come out of our backpacks. I said to Michelle, I said, "Oh, I need a t-shirt, a fresh t-shirt." So she said, "Well, they're all packed. We've packed them all away." So I've got this one out. We'll give it a quick rinse before we head off. Lots of travel tips coming up. Lots of beautiful places around the world. Love you all. Take care. And Michelle and I will see you